Go live. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Tim and Tim Show every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And this week is going to be kind of for those of you that like to work out a lot, you have, you're working out, you're doing your sets, you're increasing your weight, or reducing your reps and all this other kind of stuff in order to build muscle so that you don't plateau. Well, then you have what something is called a deload week. And that's where you go really light on the weight, you go really high on the reps, and you just kind of give your body a chance to relax after, trying to teach it how to build muscle. So this what we're talking about this week. We're doing a deload week of all of the refinances that Tim and Tim have done this year to date. It is May, and we have closed since December 6 loans since December. That's a combination of bridge loans we've done Freddie Mac loans, we've done credit union loans, and we've also done some loans with some local regional banks. So we have crossed the gambit in different lenders over the last 5.5 months or so. And I thought now was a good time to just come on and talk about how once the refinance is done, everyone, you post on social media or you send out a message to your investors, you return equity, hopefully, you pay some distributions, hopefully, and then everyone thinks it's, fine and dandy on easy street. But little do a lot of people know and understand is that once you close these loans, there's always these like additional requirements that these lenders want, right? Because you got to think it's a new relationship, it's a new loan, it's a new risk for them. They have their own internal bank processes and everything that need to be completed on new risks. And there's a lot of downstream work that has to occur after a refinance is complete. So we just figure we come on and we start talking about our experiences of how they differ from agency lenders to credit unions to local banks and everything. So with that, Tim Vest, how you doing today, man?
Doing great. I did not know you were going to pull out the workout analogy.
Yeah, that's that was what are they? Improv. That was improv.
Yeah. I actually used to hate deload weeks. Not so much from the lifting standpoint, but like from like cycling, running, and Ironman training. You have those as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, right? I mean, you got to give your body time to recover and rest, and going through these refinances, a ton of pressure and stress. Like there's deadlines and a lot of money going around, and investor expectations and partner expectations, and everyone asking questions of when is this going to happen? When's this going to happen? And some things are out of your control. It's a lot of things can be in your control, but it's like it's always funny when we go to the week of closing, whether it's a purchase or refinance or a sale. Oh, we also did a couple sales. It's always like, oh, there's a fluster of emails going around, right? The attorneys are barking and the brokers are barking and the insurance people are all barking. It's like, oh, something is definitely happening this week. So it's nice. We have about, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks until that starts to happen again. So it's just like, we're going to take care of some of these requirements and all of these things that we signed up for, make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted so that we can turn a new leaf and continue to look forward for the next 5 years on these loans.
Yeah, I love those investor conversations. Just so you know, like it never ceases to amaze me, like how the lender process will go, right? And we're still going through a refi right now, guys, on 2 properties, and I had an investor reach out to me last week and was like, "Oh, so we got some favorable feedback from the lender, so we're good, right?" And I was like, "No, it was really good favorable feedback. It's definitely a positive sign, but no, we're not good."
No, we're not good until it's done. Until it's done. Until the money has hit our bank account and title company has said this has been recorded, it's not done.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out some timing and some stuff like that, and I'm trying to help him, kind of understand everything. And he did ask that question. He was like, "So when are you going to feel good?" I'm like, "After they deploy the cash, like when we disperse and close."
Yeah, when they said we're in receipt of bank funds. Whew. Okay, that is a huge hurdle.
And then we are clear to close and disperse. I am like that. That's when I'll feel good.
Yeah. That's a great segue into some conversations about post-closing conversations, right? I mean, you know what? You and I have had a ton of conversations with, other general partners that have raised money for our deals. I personally meet with some of my investors in person that live here in Wilmington, and we talk about expectations, timelines, how
Yeah.
things are shaping up. But nothing is ever, ever, ever definitive until it's done. Until the money
No,
is in your bank account, it's not
right.
complete. But then, on the flip side, you have a lot of newer investors that are like, how come this money has been said that it's been paid to me and I haven't gotten it yet? I'm like, well, how long do ACHs take to
Yeah.
process? 3 to 5 days. How many days has it been? 2. Hmm.
Well, there's also, and then there's always the, I see that you guys say it's been sent. Yeah, we can see that it left.
Yep.
Well, where'd it go? I don't know.
Wherever you put your bank details.
Wherever you put your bank details, and at this point, you'll have to call your bank and figure out where it is.
I don't know. I just know it's not with us. Oh man. So, all right. So one of the bigger headache things that we have to handle after a loan closes is, especially with agency lenders, prominently with agency lenders, at the refinance, they will have a PCA, or property condition assessment report, done, and they will identify CapEx and repairs that need to be completed within a 90-day window and a 365-day window. And they will withhold those funds at closing in an escrow account and say, you need to go do this work and pay for it before we give you the money back that we withheld, to ensure that the work is done on the property that we hold the first lien on. And sometimes it's substantial. I mean, one loan we did in January was $55,000. One loan we did in April was close to $80,000. And these deals, they need the money, right? I mean, it's difficult. You have to pay for this money. You have to pay for these repairs before you even get the money back. And then all of the hoops they make you jump through in order to get the money back is like, oh my God, it's absolutely stressful. So, you have to do the work. You have to get all the invoices. You have to get all of the paid receipts. You got to get copies of the checks. You have to provide the bank statements. You need to highlight all the items and showing them where it cleared the bank as proof. You have to tell them how much you paid to actually have each line item done versus how much they budgeted. And then once you do all of that, you can't send them a zip file. You have to send them this information. And generally, they don't seem to have a place to upload all of the documents in a bulk upload. So you have to send 80 emails with with each piece on a separate email. And it's like I'm sorry, but being tedious like that is not my strong suit. Like, I am bowl through the wall, like, let's get it done, let's get it completed. I went so as far, I did all of the stuff, right? So it's very difficult for me to do that attention to the tedious work like that. And I sent it over to them, and they sent it back. They said it's wrong. I'm like, well, what's wrong about it? They're like, the amounts don't match. I'm like, what are you talking about? So we went back and forth for a month, and they still not approved it. I called our lending broker and I said, can you just send an inspector to the property and I will personally pay for the inspection so that they can come verify that all of these things are done? And he was like, no, they won't do that. I'm like, oh my God, this is beside. I wanted to throw this computer through the window because I was so aggravated with the attention to detail and the tediousness of completing this task was just by far the most annoying thing that I've ever had to go through in order to get money that we did the work way ahead of their timelines. We paid for it. We provided all the receipts, but because it wasn't on their form in this format with this breakdown so that they can understand it, if you read the invoices and you read the descriptions that I put, it's all there. It's all there.
Yeah.
But it's just, man, doing those CapEx repairs, something that really grinds my gears.
And this is CapEx, guys. This is CapEx that they kept loan proceeds at closing to do.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, it's like, that's our CapEx funds that we had been planning on, but right now they're locked up. So guess where the money came from to do the work? Cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now you got investors looking for a distribution. It's like, can't pay you a distribution because the money's locked up with the lender because we had to use cash flow to float the bills till we got the CapEx money from the lender that was supposed to go there to do the work.
Yeah, right.
And of course, and most investors understand that, but at the same time, it's still very, very frustrating.
I think most investors understand the concept of it, but
Yeah,
don't appreciate the time it takes to do it.
no,
Um, but yeah, that's the difficulty, right? They're like, oh, well, we just, reduced our mortgage payment from $65,000 a month to $32,000 a month. So we can start making distributions, right? And I'm like, well, actually, we got to do about
maybe.
$70,000 of CapEx first. So we need to take 2 months of cash flow that we would have spent on mortgage interest so that we can fund it and do the work and then get the money back. Maybe next quarter we can start doing distributions if all of things align well and all the money comes back and there's no hiccups in the process. We can do it pretty quickly. And me personally, I'll go out here on a limb and say a lot of my frustration is they outsource all of this stuff overseas, and there's a language barrier included in this whole process as well. And it's just I think that's a huge part of the problem.
Well, and I think the other frustrating part too, man, is different lenders have different processes, different requirements. Like one lender, they give you a form, you fill it out, you submit the receipts, and they send a guy out to inspect, and you're good.
Yeah.
The next
Well,
guy, the next lender has 400 hoops you got to jump through, right? And then like on the other end of that, Tim, we're going through this right now. We submit everything, we throw it up there, fill out their forms, put it in their portal, and without calling anybody, they send the inspector out.
yeah, that was a new one. That was a
Yeah,
new one.
and I'm like, whoa, you got. I'm like, that's almost too fast. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really glad you guys did this, but like, like the inspector guy's literally called like on his way to the property, and he's like, I'll be there in 30 minutes to inspect all the units, and it's like, whoa, we had no idea. These are occupied.
Yeah. To be fair, I think that lender is used to construction where there's no occupancy, right? So they're just like, oh, it's just a job site. I'll go show up on the job site whenever.
Right. But at the same time, but even new construction, I've never just had an inspector show up, because they got to make sure that they can get access to inspect what they need to inspect. Right.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, it's always good to be like, hey, I'm coming tomorrow. And
Yeah.
not I was over here eating lunch and was like, I think I can make this appointment. Let me just hop on by there.
Yeah. Let me swing it. Let me swing it real quick.
Yeah. But at the same time, just different issues, but at the same time, locking up cash for a long time, that's the worst. That's absolutely the worst thing I think a lender can do to an operator.
How many times, Tim, have we had the conversation about when lenders do that they're putting the deal at more risk by withholding the money than what they're trying to get the outcome for?
As an operator, man, it doesn't make sense to me at all, because I'm like, from an operational standpoint, what do we say all the time? Like, give me reserves and cash flow and I can survive another day. Take one of those away and you're really, really putting me at risk. So as an operator, I look at a lender and I'm like, you're literally pushing a risk button. Like, when
Yeah.
you do this, I guess they have a reason for this. I don't know.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe that's how they protect against deploying unnecessary capital and getting, I mean, how many times, Tim, over the last 2 years have we walked properties that are in receivership and we look at the lender and go, you guys gave them money? I
Yeah.
mean,
Right. I
like,
don't understand. Oh my God. I don't understand. Like, how do you go through that whole process with all those inspections and you show up on the property and you spend 2 million where?
yeah, yeah. I mean, and guys, what he's talking about, that's a real life example. We walked a property that was in receivership and we're walking with the lender going, you approved $2 million in disbursements. Can you show me $2 million of capex on this property? And the guy walking it with us was like, no,
Nope.
no,
Right.
can't see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So we've done loans with Fannie, with Freddie, with the credit unions and the local banks and stuff. I mean, yeah, I think our experience with Freddie has not been great. I think I don't. I'll say this: I don't fundamentally understand the difference between Fannie and Freddie. I just refer to them as agency lenders, but I don't truly understand what fits in one bucket that doesn't fit in the other. And going through the process with a Freddie Mac loan was way more stressful and
Oh yeah,
way more tedious and time consuming than doing a Fannie Mae loan.
yeah, yeah. I think where I sit, guys, like, and I'll fully admit this, like, I never can figure out exactly what is the agency kind of hurdle versus what's the servicer's hurdle, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. My goodness.
Because we'll do a loan with the same agency, and depending on the servicer, the hoops you got to jump through are completely different. Uh,
Yeah.
or one's worse than the other, but the lender on the backside's still the same. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely the servicer issues because, they come back and they're like, well, this is something that they might request. So can you send me this? I'm like, no, this loan didn't even originate until 2026. You're not privy to my 2025 information. I
right,
mean, if you really need it, I'll give it to you. But just to have it because you want it,
right,
I don't think so.
yeah, yeah. I always love that one. Like, just in case they ask for it. Well, when they ask for it, I'll give it to you.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah, I have to say, I do prefer to work with the credit unions and the local banks, but what I don't prefer about them is the recourse debt versus the agency loans that are the non-recourse debt. So there's a couple loans we had to do recourse on in order to get, the debt taken out of. So let's talk a little bit about recourse versus non-recourse and what those guarantees look like and what it really ultimately feels like to carry those guarantees. Um, Tim and I had two properties that had recourse debt, and they really changed I would say our perspective on carrying recourse debt. Because if you look at the loan documents, you are both equally and unconditionally unlimited recourse guarantee
Right,
against the full loan amount. And that carries a lot of weight, meaning that you guys are both responsible for 100% of the loan amount. And, I think it's not appreciated as much unless you go through a hairy situation with recourse debt that you really start to realize, hey, they could come after everything that you got. With recourse, I mean, non-recourse debt, as long as you're not stealing, you're not being fraudulent, you're not, doing what do they call it? The bad boy carve outs,
bad
right?
boy. Yeah,
Yeah, if you as long as you don't do any of those bad boy carve outs and it converts to a recourse loan, you're kind of limited at the loss of the property, right? And that's a lot easier to walk away from as a recourse issue than full recourse debt because if the lender takes the property back and they don't sell it and recoup 100% of their money plus whatever, they're coming after your personal house, your kids' college tuition, your personal house and cars and anything that affects your day-to-day life. They're coming after to make sure that they're whole. And I can tell you very clearly now, I have seen both sides. There are recourse lenders that do it in order to make sure that they're covered. And then there are recourse lenders that are lend to own banks. Like they lend you money with the intent and they want to take these properties back and they want to take, your personal assets. And I maybe that's me sitting from this side of the table talking against some big conglomerate bank, but at the same time, it feels that way that there are banks out there that they will lend you money just because they want to take what you
yeah.
have.
No, I don't, Tim. I don't think that's necessarily you. I think because it's not just us. Like we've heard, just so you guys know, like we've heard that phrase, loan to own.
Loan to own.
We've heard that phrase from multiple operators, multiple brokers. It's not something that we were just sitting here and we're like, I think these guys want this thing. You like that kind of we're hearing that across the industry, and we're hearing it too many times to think it's just a I don't know, like an urban myth, right? Like
Yeah.
I think there are guys out there that do it.
I mean, we've come across two different lenders now that have done it to us.
Yeah, and I won't name names, but there's a pretty big balance sheet lender out there that a lot of people know that I know for a fact has a pretty strong history of exercising clauses in their loans to say nope, it's mine, and they'll
Yep.
take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Horror stories. I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, you really got to pay attention to what you're signing debt for and
yeah,
who you're signing it with. Because I mean, thankfully, you and I always share in that liability, and we know like, hey, we're not going to let this thing fail, no matter what. But
right.
there are other partners out there that they're like, hey, you know what? You're on the debt, not me. Tough
Yeah,
shit.
and sorry, not to go down this rabbit hole, but guys, like that's important to remember. Like Tim and I will sign those together.
Hmm.
Because there's a level of trust there where it's like, I know he's not going to leave me high and dry. If he can help it, he's not going to leave me high and dry. Because something that Tim mentioned before was, it's two people for that's on the loan for recourse, and yeah, you are together jointly responsible for the total of the loan. But if one of those people can't hit it, the other person makes up the difference. So,
Hmm.
let's for example, if Tim and I are on the hook for a $2 million loan and Tim's personal assets come to 500 grand, all right, they'll take his 500 grand, then they come after me for the rest. Right.
Yep.
So, that's, folks, you got to understand that it's not just two guys looking at each other going, okay, high five, we're in this together. You got to make sure you
Yeah.
trust that person to be there when that time comes, if that time comes.
Yeah, yeah, and hopefully Denver does. But I mean, we've
Right.
we've had a couple close encounters where like, oh shit, we gotta figure this one out.
Yeah.
um,
And I think for the most part, our close encounters have mostly come from, some impacts from the market, but
oh
also
yeah,
then lenders who are like, too bad, so sad, not working with you.
yeah,
Um, you know, and you're like scrambling to figure it out. Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
But yeah, just after going through it, it makes me cautious. It makes me stop and think a little bit about what's on the hook. What are we getting paid? What's the upside here for us in actually doing this? What's the downside? And is the risk worth the reward?
yeah, I honestly, I've been thinking about, honestly, guys, like a lot of times the way that works is, I don't know, there's some level of equity and some level of, fee associated with, an operator doing that, or a partner doing that. Um, but you really do have to ask yourself that question: is that worth it? Right? Because like somebody asked me the other day, they were like, "Hey, but you're getting equity for doing this," and I'm like, "And what's that equity worth if that happens?"
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's called a
So
GP promote for a reason. Like, we don't make anything until the investors get their preferred
right,
returns and 100% of their money back before we see anything. So your GP equity is worth $0 until the property's sold and it actually generates some type of money.
yeah. So, so really then it comes down to the fee. And, I mean, I'll give you a practical example. One of those fees was like, 50 grand split two ways.
Hmm.
And it's like, so I got $25,000 to take on, $3 million in risk.
Yep.
I
Seems like a good trade-off, Tim.
don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh boy.
And guys, the only reason it goes back to the partnership thing, the only reason it was worth it to me to do that is because I trust that the two guys sitting here will do whatever they got to do to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Uh,
And we've done that already.
yeah. So,
Yeah. Well, all right. Oh, here's the last thing on the recourse guarantee that I wanted to touch on that most people don't understand or realize is when you're doing these recourse debt, especially with credit unions and local banks, they generally have a threshold of reserve requirements that they want you to have. And this one bank in particular, we negotiated it down, but it was 350,000. Negotiated it down to 250,000. But one of the covenants of the loan is that we hold and maintain $250,000 of cash in the bank with their bank, and if we do not, that's considered a default. And
mhm,
under default, they charge us default interest. They can call the note. They can claim the property back. So there's a lot of weight on making
yeah,
sure that you have the liquidity and the reserves in the bank account to support that covenant of the loan. And I think it is lost on people. I mean, we brought it up to some other partners, and they're like, we had no idea. And we're like, yeah, if the properties have $50,000 in cash and we have a $250,000 reserve, Tim and Tim got to make sure that we have in our personal bank accounts an additional $200,000 combined to
yeah,
cover that covenant for this loan.
right,
And I think that, that I don't think people understand that if you don't do that, it's considered a default.
yeah,
And then if you default, then everyone's gonna be looking at you of like, well, why did you default on the loan? You should have known that because you signed on the debt. Like it's this kind of like chicken and the egg type of scenario where it's real money we're talking about at the
yeah.
end of the day. It's real cash.
But the thing is I think you mentioned something there that I think people overlook because they're hearing a lot of negativity, right, on recourse and local lenders and things like that. But, I think you said something there that I think is key, which is like, we negotiated it down, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think that is something that people miss, because, like, why would you do that? Why would you do a local lender? Well, because relationships are huge, right?
Yeah,
And I can tell you, when my experience, for the most part, when Fannie and Freddie come in with, this is what we're doing,
that's it.
there's, you can go request a waiver, but you're probably not going to get it. And then the other piece of that too is, like, Fannie and Freddie quotes, in my experience, tend to start here, and they do this as you get closer to the closing table. Where, so with local lenders, with more regional lenders, it's a relationship thing. When they, for the most part, when they quote you a number, you're
They'll
pretty
stick
close
to
to
it.
that number.
Yeah.
And then the second piece is when they come back and they're like, we need you to hold 500 grand in our bank. And we're like, man, locking up 500 grand, can't touch that for 5 years. That's going to be really difficult. What about 300? And so you can ask that question, because a lot of times, guys, the way those loans work is they go to like a loan committee at the bank, and it's the guys at the bank working at the bank, and they're like, yeah, okay, tell me about these guys. And they'll take that into consideration. And a lot of times they will make that agreement with you, especially if you're
Yes.
like, hey, listen, I'm going to open up these 4 accounts with you. And because Tim and we aren't disingenuous when we say this. We're like, I'm looking for the best banking relationship I can find.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and when I find that banking relationship, they're going to get a lot of my business, right?
Banks need us as much as we need them. And we got to
Yeah,
remember that, right? It's a two-way street. It's not just what you dictate, you get, right? It's, well, what do you need from me as well? And
yeah,
there's a lot of value in that relationship. I mean, I know that we closed a couple loans, and then I drove to Charleston. I took their whole team out to lunch. Well,
yeah,
they ended up paying for it. They wouldn't let me pay for it, but I was the one that was like, "Hey, let's go out to lunch. Like, I'll buy. Let's, I want to meet all you guys in person. This is a sign of gratitude. Thank you for doing everything that you did for us." And yada yada yada. And they were like, "Oh, that's wonderful. Let's do that." And that just continued to make every conversation downstream so much easier ever since that was like, what, 6 months ago or something now.
Man, I didn't know they paid. Shit,
They did.
I'm driving to Raleigh. I'm calling the bank. I'm going to have
Yeah.
it's dinner at Angus Barn. Let's do it.
Yeah. 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 All right. Well, last thing I want to talk about when we're talking about all these refinances and kind of moving around debt, and I want to talk, this is not anything that we have not covered before, but how our rent strategies change after a refinance into stabilized debt.
Oh yeah,
The number one thing that we push for after going into stabilized debt, because there's no, there's generally no CapEx reserve, draw account to draw upon, is we want to continue to push rents over time. We want to make it gradual, but our number one concern is to not take on vacancy. Because when you take on vacancy, you eat a month of vacancy cost, which is 1 month's rent. You got to turn the unit, and that could be $1,500 to $3,500, depending on how bad the condition of the unit is. You have to pay new leasing fees. You got to pay advertising fees, marketing. There's a lot of effort by the team in order to go out and acquire a new renter. It's a lot easier and it's a lot cheaper to retain your current renter.
right.
And because you're not shooting for this refinance event to maximize the value and pull out as much equity, you're more focused on cash flow. And the best way to focus on the cash flow is maintain your vacancy. So now that how many bridge loans do we have left? One, two? We got like 2 bridge loans, three, sorry, 3 bridge loans left. Those are the only loans that we are like pushing.
Yep.
Evict people, get them out, renovate the unit. We have the money to deploy. Let's get the rent up. We got to get the value up as high as possible so that we can refinance and position ourselves for the next 5 years. Everything else that we own right now is, hey, I know we can go up another $75 on the rent, but how about we go up $30 so that we don't lose everybody right now? And, we just continue to chip away at that, that loss to lease over time. And it's way more important to focus on the cash flow and vacancy than it is to push the value at this point.
Yeah. I got nothing to say to that. I mean, how many times do we have to explain that?
Too many times. But it is, I think it does 2 things. One, it opens up a lot of capacity for the team, right? Because going through those value add stages, that's a high stress environment. Like, from me and the financial side of the group, like we're focused on making the mortgage payments and doing the CapEx draws and making sure that we have money in the account, and we're focused on upcoming renewals. There's a lot of planning and conversations that go involved. On the front end side, it's, a lot of marketing. It's a lot of, dealing with hard conversations with your current renters. They're like, why are you going up $100 on my rent or $300 on my rent? Those are taxing, tiring events that the property managers have to do day in and day out in order to achieve your business plan. It's a lot easier to just, issue a 2 or 3% increase and say, hey, like, this is just what everybody's getting. This is what we're doing is a 3% increase. And the capacity of the team opens up because everyone's able to take it a little bit of a deload, right? Where they're like, hey, we're going to go into a more traditional ownership style now. We're going to just, try to increase rents over the next 3 to 5 years. We're not going to try to push people out unless they're bad eggs, right? The late payers, we're going to evict people that don't pay, that are causing problems in the neighborhood type of thing. But all of that changes once you go into your stabilized debt. You really just want to focus on that vacancy and cash flow.
Right. Yeah.
And building up your reserves. Because, man, I can tell you, the one thing that saved our bacon over the last two years, man, has been adequately reserved properties. Thank God we over-reserved properties to make sure that we could pay for CapEx, carrying costs, insurance renewals. Like, we had all that money up front. And, yeah, it means more equity to the table, but it also made a much safer deal. So thankfully we did that. We'll continue to do that.
Yeah. In fact, guys, that's one of the very first things Tim and I talk about when refi proceeds hit a bank account is like, all right, how much are we putting back into reserves?
Minimum 1,000. Some deals we put $2,000 a unit in a reserve account before we return pref payments, before we start returning equity and all that, because we want to make sure that the deal has money, because the first thing to kill a deal is when you have no liquidity.
Yeah, right. Cannot agree with that more.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, hope you had a great weekend and learned something from this show. Appreciate everybody joining, and we will see you next Tuesday. Peace.
See you guys.